If the biggest problem with unclear communication is that it's confusing or it lacks focus, the biggest mistake that people make to contribute to that is they don't understand that communicating clearly is about making very clear and intentional decisions. Who is this message for? What do they want? What are my expectations? And a failure to decide on these things is a failure to focus.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the KTS Success Factor podcast for women, where we talk about challenges senior female leaders face in being happy and successful at work. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah E. Brown.
My guest today is Eleanor Beaton, a women's leadership mentor and founder of Fierce Feminine Leadership, an organization that helps ambitious women develop the confidence, presence, political savvy, and influence they need to smash the glass ceiling and take their seats at the tables where the big deals and big decisions are made. Eleanor is also an award-winning journalist and host of the Fierce Feminine Leadership podcast. She has served as chair of the Visiting Women's Executive Exchange Program at the Yale School of Management, and she currently sits on the boards of Innova Corp and Invest Nova Scotia. Eleanor was the winner of the 2018 Nova Scotia Export Achievement Award, Business of Diversity Champion of the Year. In 2017, she won the prestigious Profiles in Diversity Women Worth Watching Award for her work promoting diversity and inclusion. She was also named Canada's Leadership Coach of the Year by the 2017 Corporate Excellence Awards. Eleanor has been privileged to serve some of that country's most recognized women leaders, including Arlene Dickinson, star of CBC's hit show Dragon's Den, and former Canadian First Lady Margaret Trudeau. An international keynote speaker, Eleanor has presented at conferences whose rosters include such notables as former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton, Oscar-nominated actress Taraji P. Henson, and 23andMe Inc. co-founder Anne Wojcicki. Welcome, Eleanor. Thanks for being here.
It's such a privilege to be here with you. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about the biggest challenge you're helping female business leaders face in business today.
I think the single biggest challenge that I support women leaders in facing and overcoming is the ability to communicate their ideas clearly, effectively, and memorably. That ability to, your listeners are obviously already pretty good communicators. You don't get to be in the seats that they are in without an ability to communicate. But I'm talking about next level communication, which is so critical for senior leaders so that your ideas and your presence are felt, heard, and remembered even when you're not in the room.
So what would you say are the biggest mistakes your clients make before they start working with you?
I love this question. I think that the way that if we take a look at how do you know that your ideas that you're not communicating your ideas effectively. So a couple of different things happen. The first is that you're not understood or your ideas aren't being valued and acted upon. Potentially inside an organization, your brand might not be as strong as you need it to be in order to build alliances, to get the buy-in that you need to push forward some of your most ambitious, agenda items. Mm-hmm. Those are all, sometimes your team might not have the clarity that they need in order to really execute for you at a high level. And so I think that one of the mistakes that clients make before we start working together is in not making the decisions that bring focus to communication. If the biggest problem with unclear communication is that it's confusing or it lacks focus, the biggest mistake that people make to contribute to that is they don't understand that communicating clearly is about making very clear and intentional decisions. Who is this message for? What do they want? What are my expectations around this? What problem am I trying to address or solve with this communication? These are the types of decisions that we need to make as leaders. And a failure to decide on these things is a failure to focus. And a failure to focus results in unclear communication.
I get it. So what is the number one free and actionable tip you can give my audience to address this challenge now?
I think the most important thing you can do is to take the time, so to create some time and space to be very clear about the point you are trying to make. So one piece of counsel that I'll often advise clients is, look, take a position, make a point, stop talking generally about a topic, but take the time to be very clear. What is the one thing that I want this person or this party or this group to take away from this communication? So we take a look at that one point. A mistake that people will sometimes make is trying to shoehorn multiple different points into a communication. And you've been through that PowerPoint presentation, as have I. So it's really the number one thing is, what is the one takeaway? Now we back that takeaway up with a couple of different things. So I always think, what's your major point? What's the big idea? What's the key takeaway that you want to communicate here? And then from there, we back that up with a couple of different things. Number one, stories or a story or an example. Number two, very often there are specific details that support that particular point, the how-to perhaps. And then the final piece of that is, what's the promise? So if your big point is, you know, and I think some of your leaders might be experiencing this, we as a team must implement more operational restraint, i.e., this team needs to bring more focus and eliminate unnecessary projects. Let's say that's the point that you're trying to make. Well, you're going to give an example of one of those projects. You're going to give them some guidance, the how-tos on how to do it. But what you need to do, and this is the difference between an iconic, legendary communicator and just a regular communicator, is that you need to articulate the so what. What's the big promise here? When we do this, this is going to enable us to power through this challenging time and position our team for incredible growth at the back end. As an example, right? So really getting clear, what's the one thing you want people to take away, and then backing it up with stories, the specific details, and ultimately the big promise of that idea.
I get it. So what's a valuable free resource you can share with women to help them understand this challenge better?
I would go to eleanorbeaton.com/communication. There, I have what I call the Critical Communication Planning Toolkit. So that sort of quadrant, that I just shared with you, really teaching people, here's how you refine your thinking so that you're sharing one key point. Here are some examples of how you might use story to back that up. Here is an example of how you can supply the necessary detail for people to understand how to implement your idea. And here's how you can begin, speaking to the promise of your idea, the so what. That is all included in that resource.
So, Eleanor, what's one question that I should have asked you that will help our audience take action to address this challenge? And then please give me an answer to it.
You know what I love? I started out as a journalist, and I can remember getting trained as a journalist. And that was the question you just asked me was the question we were instructed to never forget to ask. So I love when I saw that question, I was like, this is the world's best question. I think the question that you could have asked would be, what's the impact of communicating clearly, effectively, and memorably? What's the so what, And I think there's really three things that lead to a much bigger fourth. The three things are that you are deeply understood. From that place of being deeply understood, you are deeply respected and valued. And from that place, you are able to become a noteworthy business leader. And the reason that this is so important, is because for women, it's about elevating women leaders into positions of real power where we can continue to create the change that our business world needs and wants to really elevate other women around us.
Well, Eleanor, this has been really great. Thank you so much for joining us.
I so appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the KTS Success Factor podcast for women. If you like what you are hearing, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate us, and leave a review. And if you would like more information on how we can help women in your organization to thrive, then go to www.sarahebrown.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, read show notes and learn more about our podcast guests, read my blog, browse through the books, or contact us for a chat. Goodbye for now.